Hello and welcome to another TLDR Brexit Explains video. On Monday, we released a rather disappointing video, informing you quite how little had happened in Brexit negotiations over the weekend. We knew the talks going on were important, but the closed-door meetings had yet to produce any results, so we were no clearer on whether a deal was looking possible. That seemingly all changed yesterday, when the UK made a big announcement regarding the Internal Market Bill, the controversial legislation that annoyed everyone from lawyers and the EU to even the Conservatives' own lords. So in this video we're going to be talking about that update, the news that the EU and UK have agreed on an interpretation of the Northern Ireland Protocol, and so the UK have dropped the cheeky clauses from the Internal Market Bill that would otherwise have broken international law. With this new agreement ultimately making a deal more likely? Well, we'll see about that. Predictable as it is, this video was brought to you by our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. As everyone who watches regularly will already know, this book runs you through 21 key Brexit moments, not only providing you a colouring opportunity, but also a summary of events. So even if you're not into colouring, you can always still have a little peep. Purchasing also gets you access to our exclusive Brexit timeline video. Anyway, right now you can get this beautiful bundle, or 2 signed copies for a big discount. But time's running out for Christmas delivery, so treat yourself or a friend by clicking the link to the store below. So, before we get into the news, some brief context, because unfortunately you do need to understand the withdrawal agreement and the Internal Market Bill before we can continue. As we explained in a video 3 months ago, in September the UK government put forward the Internal Market Bill, or IMB, a controversial piece of legislation to say the least. The IMB contains some clauses which would change and overwrite parts of the withdrawal agreement that the UK and EU signed earlier this year, more specifically making changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol. The Northern Ireland Protocol is an important part of that agreement, setting out how the EU and UK would deal with the border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as to protect the integrity of the EU single market. For the purposes of this video, there are basically 3 things you need to know about the protocol. Firstly, at-risk goods. Basically, the Northern Ireland Protocol says that any goods that are considered at risk of entering the EU via Northern Ireland require customs declarations. This is basically so that companies can't sneak past EU tariffs by moving goods first into Northern Ireland, then into the EU over the soft border. By default, all goods are at risk, but according to the Northern Ireland Protocol, a Northern Ireland Joint Committee made up of EU and UK officials can agree to designate some goods as not at risk of moving to the EU, thereby exempting them from customs declarations. This might be stuff like food that's going to be sold in a Tesco in Northern Ireland, because it's unlikely that Tesco are going to be sneaking biscuits into France. The second component is state aid, and that's the money that governments give companies and organisations to help them out. Now, according to Article 10 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, EU law still applies to state aid that affects Northern Ireland, which could basically mean any state aid that happens in the UK. This is because even if you only give state aid to a Great British company, if it sells stuff in Northern Ireland or in some way distorts competition in Northern Ireland, it still technically affects Northern Ireland, and thus needs to follow EU laws. Finally, exit customs declarations. Basically, according to Article 5 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, Northern Ireland will be in the EU's customs territory, even after Brexit. And therefore, according to the EU Customs Code, goods moving from Northern Ireland to Great Britain will require a customs exit declaration. So that's what the Northern Ireland Protocol set out within the withdrawal agreement. The very same withdrawal agreement that Johnson was so proud to pass through Parliament earlier this year. But it seems like the UK government ended up changing their mind on this, becoming increasingly unhappy with the protocol. So here comes the controversy. To get around the protocol, the UK published the Internal Markets Bill. The IMB basically said that the UK was going to ignore the Northern Ireland Protocol when it came to state aid and exit customs declarations. Articles 43, 44 and 47 all worked to overrule the provisions about state aid. Clause 42 was about exit summary declarations, and Clause 45 was about, breaking international law. This caused a huge amount of controversy for pretty obvious reasons. The UK had already agreed to these rules as part of the withdrawal agreement. Backtracking and modifying an existing international agreement was essentially breaking international law. Not a great start for a newly independent nation looking for trading partners. Anyway, as well as the IMB, the government was expected to publish a taxation bill today that would basically say that the UK would ignore its obligations under the Northern Ireland Protocol around customs declarations for at-risk goods. Yep, that's a hat trick of the UK government ignoring the protocol they only just signed up to. This was obviously a big issue for the EU, with Michel Barnier actually saying last week that the controversial clauses would make doing a deal more difficult. Anyway, as we mentioned in our video on Monday, the government was planning on bringing back these clauses anyway, and in fact, they republished the Internal Market Bill on Monday. However, at 1 PM on Tuesday, the UK and EU, or rather Michael Gove and the European Commission Vice President, announced that they'd come to some agreement on the Northern Ireland Protocol, and that the UK would drop some of the controversial clauses. According to the UK briefing, both sides found agreement in principle on all issues, including border control posts, entry points specifically for checks on animals, plants and derived products, export declarations, the supply of medicines, the supply of chilled meats and other food products to supermarkets, and a clarification on the application of state aid under the terms of the protocol. Now, according to James Crisp, the Telegraph's Brussels correspondent, as part of this agreement, the UK agreed to an EU office in Northern Ireland, something they previously rejected. In fact, back in April, Penny Mordaunt sent a letter to Barnier which described it as divisive in political and community terms. But it's worth noting this hasn't actually been confirmed by the UK yet. Anyway, as we just heard, the UK agreed to withdraw clauses 44, 45 and 47 of the Internal Markets Bill, and not introduce any similar provisions in the taxation bill. Now, we're not lawyers, but this does still leave Article 42 and 43, which also look pretty controversial to us, but we're presuming that they don't matter on their own because they need Clause 45 to give them precedence over international law. If any lawyers could help clear that up for us, that'd be great, but if not, we'll assume that it's all okay for now. Anyway, technicalities aside, this is good news however you look at it. It means that there's not going to be some massive standoff between the EU and UK in January, and the UK doesn't need to break international law. It's hard to say whether this actually makes a final trade deal more likely. On one hand, it might rebuild some of the lost trust between the EU and UK. The EU clearly weren't keen on the fact that Britain had already attempted to get out of their agreements before they'd even come into force. The idea of Britain not playing fair has long been a concern of the EU, with the enforcement of rules being one of the EU's biggest issues during the negotiation process. On the other hand, it might make the EU less scared of a no deal. If the UK has agreed to honour the withdrawal agreement and not break international law in the event of a no-deal Brexit, it does remove some of the sting of no deal. Certainly by no means all of it. There's definitely Europeans who are still keen to reach a deal, but it could remove some of the impetus. Anyway, even if it doesn't make a deal more likely, or if no deal happens, this is still great news in and of itself, and should make whatever relationship the EU and UK have in January that bit more functional. Building a relationship together is a fair bit easier if that relationship doesn't start with law breaking. And that's all we have for the moment. News on a Brexit deal, or lack thereof, is expected in the next few days or even hours, so keep an eye on the channel for more updates. Therefore, I'd recommend that you subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified next time we post. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.